everyone, it's Habiba here. Welcome back to another video. Thanks for joining me. So first of all, I want to start by thanking everyone for the amazing love you showed in the last video. The response was just incredible. The response was amazing. Thank you to all of you who watched it, who commented, who came out to share your feelings about the situation, to show love, to show solidarity. I was delighted to see the response. Honestly, thank you guys. Alright, so those of you who haven't watched the video, you can. I'll drop a link in the description so you can check it out. So that video was about Captain IBRAHIM TRAORE, the current president of Burkina Faso, and I was just, it was a video of solidarity, so I'll let you check that one out. I saw that many of you who watched that video haven't subscribed to the channel, so if you haven't, please make sure you do. You can hit the subscribe button right now, and to those of you who have subscribed, thank you so much. I appreciate you here. Alright, before we dive into today's video, there are two comments from the last video that I want to pick up on. There are two comments that, all of your comments were really great. So thanks for you guys who just shared so much positivity and, so many insights in the comments. And now there are two comments I want to pick up on. The first was from a sister, I believe, who said we need to hold the narrative. She said we need to keep holding this narrative. And that really stood out to me because I said, yes, indeed, we need to really hold this narrative about President IBRAHIM TRAORE, the great work he's doing. Because as I said in the last video, very often when African leaders want to do right by their people, when they want to do good for the nation, there's a lot of propaganda that begins to take over, that begins to surround their efforts, and that unfortunately often becomes the narrative, right? So now it's for us, those of us who are aware of what's happening, and those of us who are creatives and storytellers and reporters and so forth, to really hold the narrative, because we know the power of narrative, right? So thank you to the person who left that comment about holding the narrative. So let's keep talking about him. Let's keep, spreading solidarity. Let's keep sharing the work he's doing, updates of the great work that's happening on the ground, so that we hold that narrative. All right, and so then there was one comment that wasn't so positive, because in the video, the previous one, you'll see I shared a clip about the solidarity coming out of Jamaica. The protest held in support of Traore in Jamaica. There's so much love coming from Jamaica and Jamaican people around the world. Even the one in Ghana was held by the Jamaican Rastafari Council in Ghana, So Jamaicans really, as the guy said in the video, him say, Jamaica a fi lead out for the rest of the world. Yes, I speak Patois. We'll talk about that in a second. But anyway, so this comment was saying, those Rastafari need to go back to Jamaica. And the person said, you are a great problem for Ethiopia. So that was a negative comment, but I said, I want to pick up on that comment to just give some historical background about the love and the solidarity, if we want to speak of from Jamaicans in particular to Africa, but now from diaspora more broadly, from diaspora black people who were captured and who were victims of the Middle Passage, so the descendants of those people. And I'm one of those descendants. Yeah, I'll tell you a little bit about my heritage in a quick second. So I wanted to pick up on that comment and use it as a learning moment, All right, so for those of you who know, or maybe you don't know, but Jamaican people in the diaspora have been such a blessing to black people in the diaspora and to Africans in Africa. Jamaicans have been a big blessing because, let me tell you, I feel like speaking some Patois here, I'll speak more Patois in a minute. But let me tell you, Jamaican people are very woke, okay? Jamaican people are very woke, very aware, and very conscious. They have a lot of consciousness, okay? And so we know in countries like Canada, in America, and in the UK, Jamaicans have been at the forefront of so many liberation struggles, of so many anti-racism struggles and efforts that have opened the way for other black groups, right? And then for other racialized people, for other people of color more broadly, okay? And now a very great example of that is the Jamaicans who were part of the Windrush generation in the UK, okay? I'm not going to go deep into history too much here because I just want to give sort of an overview of how the Black diaspora and how Jamaicans have contributed so much to African liberation, and to opening the way for so many people, to, leading out, as the guy said in the video, Jamaica afi lead out, leading out for so many people. Do your reading on the Windrush, that generation who went to the UK post World War II, after World War II, to rebuild the UK, because there was so much damage after the war. And yes, I know it wasn't only Jamaicans, there were other Caribbeans who were on that ship and who were part of that generation, but they were mostly Jamaican, right? And the struggles they faced in the beginning were just unimaginable, but imaginable, because we can imagine, and it's documented what those struggles were. The racism they faced in the UK, people didn't want to rent to them. So as a result, they raised their own money and they bought their own properties. A lot of Jamaicans in the UK of a certain generation, they have their own property. And yes, it stemmed from vision, from hard work, but it stemmed in large part from not being rented to. They weren't being rented to, and so forth. And so they fought. There were the Teddy Boys in the UK. They had to fight against a lot of racism. And I know stories from Jamaican relatives in the UK who are of that generation. It wasn't easy for them. And then also in Canada, there were Jamaicans here very early on as teachers. Some came as skilled laborers in the early 1900s, 1920s, and so forth. And even then, when they came, they were taking up human rights issues, human rights struggles, so much so. And this is documented because I did some historical research on this. There were people who were saying, and sadly one of them was another Caribbean person in that time, who wrote an official, like a government official in Nova Scotia, and was saying, don't bring the Jamaicans, they're rabble-rousers, basically. They're rabble-rousers. And not that they were really rabble-rousers, but they were just standing up for justice, All right, in the US, Marcus Garvey, we know Garvey is a Jamaican person, and look at, again, the fight for African liberation that he was involved in. I don't have to mention Bob Marley, who was very much a human rights person, a human rights activist. His song, Africa Unite, and it wasn't just through his music. He did a lot of activism through his music. And can you imagine then, in that time in Jamaica, but just the consciousness, he was filled with so much consciousness. Peter Tosh, the reggae artist, Peter Tosh, right? He spoke out about so many issues that a lot of people have just discovered today. I won't get too much into it. But check out Peter Tosh, some of his work and the issues he was championing on stage. Little Jamaica, imagine that, little Jamaica, that other people were not championing at the time, or they were scared to champion. So people got to know history, because the continental diaspora divide, so-called, that it's fake. The continental African versus African diaspora divide, it is fake, okay? And people who are ignorant, they try to play that up. Black people who are ignorant, oh, we're so different, those Caribbeans or these Africans or whatever. They are so ignorant, let me tell you. They are so ignorant. Because if you know history, you would never say that. And then first and foremost, if you know history, you would know we're one blood, we're one lineage. And I can give countless examples of that African diaspora to continental Africa solidarity and support that didn't just start today, but that started historically. There's so many historical examples of it, and not just coming from Jamaicans, but even from Black Americans. You have many Black Americans who were so keen to support the fight against Mussolini in Ethiopia. Mussolini's invasion of Ethiopia, 1935, when the Italians, they started this war, they invaded Ethiopia. There were so many who lined up in America and they registered to fight. They couldn't fight. They were denied the visas from America because it was illegal, actually, for them to do that, to go fight to support a foreign nation. But there's good history on this. There's a project that I'll link so you guys can check it out. It's called Project 3541. And the one-line description on the main page, it says, in 1935, as Ethiopia braced for a war with fascist Italy, African Americans from Harlem to Chicago and beyond rose in support of the African nation. right? This is really just incredible history. So we know Africans have been supporting other Africans. We know that blacks in the diaspora have been supporting blacks in Africa for a long time. There are countless examples. I've just given you some. We know about Mariam Makeba in Guinea. I'm going to talk about my heritage maybe in a second and some more. Yeah, I haven't really spoken about my heritage much on this channel. But anyway, we know about Mariam Makeba in Guinea Conakry during apartheid. She was in exile in Guinea and she spoke French and she very much became part of the Guinean culture. And I think she said in one video I was watching, was it Tanzania who gave her her first passport? But basically, there was so much solidarity from other African countries towards South Africans during apartheid. Many leaders were giving South African exiles passports and so forth. We know about Stokely Carmichael in Guinea. Stokely Carmichael, a black American. He was in Guinea. So that was during Jim Crow in America, the Jim Crow era, right? And so then he went to Guinea during the time of Sekou Toure, when Sekou Toure was Guinea's independence leader, for those who don't know. There was Malcolm X in Sudan. He visited Sudan during one of his tours of Africa. And he said, of all those countries he had visited at the time, he was most impressed by Sudan. So there's been a lot of interconnectedness between our people. A lot of interconnectedness. I won't go too deep into the history because that can take a lot of time because there's so much. So, big up to Jamaica people for just supporting black people in the diaspora, supporting black people in Africa for always just being so woke, so aware, so full of knowledge, Really, big up to Allah Ono. I see many are watching from there. Thank you to those who have subscribed. And so I'm Fulani too, through my father, through my late father. May his soul rest in peace. Fulani from Guinea Fulani. Ongjarama tanala no marsude, misalmini fulbe lady adunafil, misalmini fulbe Africa. So to the Fulani people watching, Ongjarama tanala, Ongjarama, that's the Guinean dialect, no marsude, misalmini fulbe adunafil, misalmini fulbe lady Africa adunafil. I'm still working on my Fulani, guys. Alright guys, so for those of you who are new here, I'm Habiba, I'm an author, I'm a maternal health activist. Actually, this YouTube channel, when I started it years ago, it was literally just to share my passion for maternal health, for sharing my passion to end obstetric fistula. At the time, I had started something called Fistula Fact Friday. You can check that out. I created a playlist for it. I just wanted to share that passion. I'm very passionate about this issue. Those of you watching from Nigeria, you may know that Nigeria has the most cases of obstetric fistula of all the countries in the world. Since then, I've expanded my channel to talk about books, writing, personal development. Je vous invite de vous abonner à cette chaîne. Merci à vous, merci à tout le monde. So like I said, misal mini fulbe komi pullo lady Guinea, and misal mini all of you for watching this video. Yeah, our next piece is actually gonna talk a little bit about Fulani people, about jihadists in the Sahel, and about some of what IBRAHIM Traoore is dealing with, guys. Basically, I just wanted to pick up on that comment and to say, it's not true. The divide is fake, guys. Don't be divided. Don't be divided. The divide is fake. And fortunately, there's so much information at our fingertips right now. Oh my God, we are so lucky to be living in the information age. So get the knowledge yourself. Become aware yourself, make yourself aware. If you don't know something, don't speak ignorantly. Don't, get the information. There's so much information. All right, so on to the next piece. You guys have probably heard that very recently jihadists in Burkina Faso, they claim to have killed 200 people from the Burkina Faso military. Alright, so some other reports I read say that IBRAHIM Traoore, he's gotten it in control. He's taken care of it and he's managed to stop at least that particular group of terrorists. Now guys, this situation, it's rather challenging, and I want to give my take on it. I'm not an expert on, this issue happening in the Sahel, the issue of insecurity, but I just want to give my take on it, and I want to look at some of the broader issues. All right, so the Sahel, when we say Sahel, it's a certain region in Africa, the Sahel states, the Sahel region. And for a long time now, the Sahel has been quite insecure. For many years, it's been quite insecure. But you see, that insecurity, it's grown a lot, and it's been growing significantly over the past few years. It's quite bad at this point. And these countries like Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, Chad, Sudan as well, northern Nigeria. They've really been struggling with insecurity in the Sahel. I'm sure people have heard of Boko Haram. This is a major group that's been causing a lot of insecurity in the Sahel, terrorizing innocent people, innocent villagers. But now, I want people to dig deeply into this and to think of what the fall of Gaddafi in 2011, what it's meant for the Sahel states. Okay, when he was assassinated in 2011, that's been one of the major contributing factors, if not the major contributing factor, to this issue of insecurity in the Sahel, guys. So look into that a little bit, right? And see how it's really destabilized that Sahel region even more. And I think I heard the Niger president, or now former president of Niger, in an interview a couple of years ago talking about that, what that meant for his nation of Niger and for other Sahel states. All right, so there's that issue of the terrorist groups. You know, you hear about all these different terrorist groups. But guys, there are also other root issues, other major contributing factors, environmental factors, you know, climate change in the Sahel. You have these groups, Fulani people, Fulani nomads, pastoralists. You have Tuareg people who have been displaced due to environmental issues. So a lot of their grazing lands have dried up. The water sources for their animals have dried up and they've become displaced. Many of them are living in refugee camps or internal IDPs, so they're called internally displaced persons. So, you know, camps for internally displaced persons. There are a lot of IDP camps in Nigeria. The Tuareg people, actually, in the 80s and 90s, they've been dealing with this issue of displacement for quite a while. And they've had a couple of Tuareg uprisings in Mali, going back to the 80s and to the 90s, right? So nomads have been dealing with a lot in the Sahel and for decades now, due to urbanization and the pressure to urbanize, and a lot of nation states telling them, you guys need to basically modernize, you know, come to the city, put your children in schools. And again, I'm just giving my take on this. I just want to give my thoughts. I'm not an expert in this area, and I'd like all of, you know, those of you to also share your insights. But I just want to give some of my thoughts on the matter. And if you ask me, I feel that some of these groups, that their transition, let me put it that way, that their transition into the broader nation state has not been well facilitated. I feel like they haven't been properly integrated into the nation state, if you will. And just so people aren't wondering, okay, what is she saying? I'm not talking about like, oh, this ethnic group should be in this country and that ethnic group should be in that country. It's due to the Balkanization of Africa and the Berlin Conference. Yes, while that stuff is valid, that's not what I'm getting to here. What I mean is that I feel because of their lifestyle, you know, their itinerant people, their nomadic pastoralists and so forth, I feel that with urbanization, they haven't been properly integrated into the state. Very often you'll hear national governments saying those people need to just kind of urbanize, modernize, come and live in the cities, leave that lifestyle behind, that's an old lifestyle and so forth. Similar to what I picked up on in the previous piece when I was talking about the San Bushmen of the Kalahari. Government officials saying things like, okay, you know, you guys need to get with it, basically, get with the program, okay? And now think about it. Even if they wanted to, even if some of these indigenous peoples or pastoralist groups like the San or the Tuareg or the Fulanis in the Sahel, the nomadic Fulanis, not all Fulanis are nomadic, you know, many are sedentary. Like, you know, you have a lot of settled Fulanis now, like my Fulani people were settled, right? How would they do it? Because they earn their livelihood from their livestock. As nomads, they're self-sufficient, they're self-sustaining. They don't have to rely on anyone. They don't necessarily operate in the cash economy. And so they have that autonomy. If they just move to an urban center now, to whichever capital city you can think of, Bamako, Niamey, wherever, Abuja, they should just move into the capitals. How are they gonna live? How are they gonna live? How are they gonna sustain themselves, especially where they don't have formal education? Think about that. You see the kind of catch-22 situation for them, right? They don't have formal education, so they can't just get a job in a bank, for example. So what it means usually is destitution. It means poverty. It means begging. And that's what a lot of nomadic peoples are trying to avoid, right? Because they know if they just leave their life behind, go to the city, it means destitution for them, you know? I saw, just a quick side note, when I went to Ghana for the first time some years ago, I was in Accra. And there were Tuaregs there in Accra begging. I saw, Tuareg, groups of Tuareg families begging in Accra, little Tuareg kids begging. Many of them had come from Mali and Niger. So you see, that's case in point. That's case in point, right? If they move into the capitals, it's not the easiest transition. And another point I want to make on this whole insecurity in the Sahel situation, when you have high levels of displacement, high levels of poverty, and people becoming impoverished due to what I just mentioned earlier, climate change, grazing lands drying up, water sources drying up, so they can't sustain themselves anymore, leads to poverty, leads to displacement, so forth. You also get a lot of child displacement, children who become orphaned, or children who are given up by their parents due to poverty. And so they end up trafficked to all kinds of places, guys. Some of you may be familiar with this phenomenon of Al-Majiri in northern Nigeria. They have it in Senegal as well, the talibé, les enfants talibés. And I did a piece on my channel. I'll link it here. Go watch it, les enfants talibés. They're basically young boys who are in these countries, and they've been given up by their parents to so-called religious leaders. But instead, they end up on the streets begging all day long. And if they don't bring enough money at the end of the day, they're beaten. And they're abused in all kinds of ways. Okay? You can check that out for yourself. Now, when these young boys grow up, mind you, they don't have any education. So when they grow up, what's their future? There's unemployment for them. There's kind of no future for them. Isn't it easy for them to be recruited into these groups, these terrorist groups? You see what I'm doing here, right? You see, I just want people to connect the dots, to look at the big picture. You see how it's easy for them to be recruited by these groups and to be recruited into Sudan too, to Hemedti's army. Those of you who know about the situation in Sudan as well, with the Rapid Support Forces. Some of the soldiers, they've been trafficked and they've been recruited from across the Sahel. I'm sure many of them are former Al-Majiri or former Talibis, right? So, presidents like IBRAHIM TRAORE, Assimi Goïta, the president of Niger as well, Chiani, what they have on their hands, it's a lot, guys. It's a lot. So that's why in the previous video, when I was talking about the need for solidarity and the positive energy and awareness and support and all this, it's real. It's real, because they're contending with a lot. They're contending with a lot. And so I just wanted to give my take on that. What do you guys think? All right, guys, so that's all I wanted to say for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like, to subscribe, to share your thoughts in the comments. I'm so happy you joined again today. Oh yeah, and another point on that, where some of these groups, some of these nomadic Fulanis and Tuaregs, where they've already felt isolated by the nation state, there's that sentiment of feeling marginalized, of being discriminated against, of not having had certain opportunities when they were growing up. Some of them growing up, they were literally moving from camp to camp to camp. I've read a lot of stories which just made me feel so compassionate, their whole lives going from IDP camp to IDP camp, right? So it's not hard for certain nefarious actors to then play up this sentiment, to take advantage of that sentiment. What do you guys think? What do you guys think the way forward is to quell the jihadist insurgency in the Sahel? All right, thanks for staying with me. See you in my next video, guys. Take care. Bye.